most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. And I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gronowski. So glad to be with you once again across the Sunshine State. We're coming to you live on FM and AM and around the world on our podcast. Welcome, everyone. We're here to challenge toxic groupthink like nobody else in the business does, because we are guided by the personhood principle that the individual person is sacred and that they are not expendable for the crowd. The crowd is a lie, as Soren Kierkegaard said. The crowd is untruth. And all of politics is about the art of the crowd, which means, guess what, folks? It's the art of the lie. That's what politics always is. It's the art of the lie because it's the art of the crowd. And the crowd is untruth. That's what it comes down to, folks. We have to be able to boil it down and understand where we're at so that we can understand how to get ourselves out of this quagmire we have become in a culture that has lost its way, a culture that doesn't believe in itself. I have told you many times, my friends, that if you don't believe in yourself, if a society does not believe that it can work together in the market, in science and research, to create solutions for pollution, solutions for being dependent on Middle Eastern oil markets, solutions for health diseases, major chronic illnesses. If you don't believe you can do that as a society, then the only thing that you're going to be stuck with is fighting over lunchroom drama, fighting over which person has more privilege, who's got a better seat, who's got a better position, who's got more benefits, who's got more advantages. That's what you're going to be stuck on, a zero-sum social drama obsession. A society that is full of power and vigor, a society that believes in itself, a society that's made up of individuals that love themselves, is a society that does not have time for lunchroom drama as the only thing going on. You see what I mean? But lunchroom drama, aka politics, is the order of the day if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't believe you can do anything, if you don't believe that you can solve problems right under your noses. A lot of people say they're against big government, but when you say, well, why do you take for granted that the big government's understanding of, let's say, nutrition or medicine should be accepted? Perhaps we need to go back to the foundations of truth and realize that maybe so much of what we thought was true about nutrition and medicine has been skewed because government has a monopoly on the funding of nutrition and medical research science. And therefore, even if it has its best intentions in tow, it is always going to be blinded by what it doesn't know. Bureaucracies that have a monopoly just can't know what they don't know. They have no incentive. And what we see today in our political world is that the media is doing everything they can to try to keep the myth alive that the state is our all-knowing, all-seeing, all-loving, all-caring, all-protecting Messiah. They cannot allow you to know that people who have been at the halls of power, at the top of power in our government, like the Biden family, they can't let you know that they're a bunch of crooks. They can't let you know the truth that they're a bunch of mafiosos. They want you to believe in the Mickey Mouse fantasy that people like Joe Biden just, all they do, my goodness, they just care too much. Oh, wow. Joe Biden just cares too much. You know, he's just a, oh, shucks guy, just loves, you can disagree on policy, but he just cares so much for this country. No, he doesn't. He cares about stealing your money. You work long hours. You don't get good sleep, do you? And you know why you don't get good sleep? Because parasites like Joe Biden have been extracting your wealth for half a freaking century. That's why you don't get good sleep. That's why you work way past the time you should. That's why you're anxious and tired and stressed. That's why your family has to work day in and day out with multiple jobs just to make ends meet, because we have had a society that has been run by monopolists at the halls of the highest order of power in the state, including run-of-the-mill crooks with low IQs like Joe Biden. Do nothing but steal with your money. They bail out the banks, which destroys your economy, destroys your savings, destroys your purchasing power. They do everything they can to regulate the economy for crook, lying, garbage, trash groups like Solyndra. Meanwhile, you can't afford your energy bills every month. It's because of crooks, run-of-the-mill, mediocre mind idiots like Joe Biden that you have the situation that you have. And the media, the lying sacks of garbage that they have become for so many years, so many decades, the media does everything they can to keep Humpty Dumpty back together again, to let you see a fantasy that Joe Biden and all these little stupid crooks like Hillary Clinton, these losers, these bigots, these warmongering bankster crook puppets, oh, they just care too much. They're just, maybe their fault. They're just a little too liberal. No, they're not. They're a bunch of shysters, crooks. And they have been destroying your life like parasites, extracting your life force year after year, extracting your time on this earth. Half of your year goes to paying local, state, and federal taxes and inflation. So much of your wages are depressed because of crooked managed trade deals that are disguised as free markets. In reality, they're corporate fascism. And all they want to do is tell you that they are good, selfless little servant leaders. They just care too much. The stupid lying, wannabe Pravda, Soviet Union media outlets. 60 Minutes, all they do is cover. Look what they did with this story about Hunter Biden. He's got these sick, disgusting images on his computer. And what does the media do? They go out and take out a Borat clip. A fantasy. And they tout the Borat clip. This loser hack who's not funny. Sacha Baron Cohen, who's yesterday's news by a couple decades. A boring loser. Not even funny. You watch this stuff and it looks like something that they would put on a nursing home in the 1800s. Garbage, boring trash. What a dumb loser. And they put this stupid movie out and they say, this is your distraction. You stupid sheep. Watch Rudy Giuliani get set up by an adult actress in a Borat movie. This is your distraction, you stupid sheep. That's what the media wants you to think. They don't want you to see the reality that Biden and his family have been taking your money left and right and enriching themselves like a bunch of mafia thug losers. That's what the state has always been. That's what its job is for. It is to extract your wealth and make you distracted by stupid, worthless, waste of time distractions. And then to make you feel mad and sad if you've been distracted by some stupid, worthless distraction. They get you all bedazzled in your emotions so that you don't actually see the steady state of the status quo that is the state. They don't care about your family. You got to go work. You got to work 2 jobs. You got to get 2 hours of sleep. You got to have your hair fall out. You got to have your stress. You got to have health issues because of the burden of the parasitical state that has been placed on your family. They don't care. All they care about is their stupid Mickey Mouse show going on. They want you to believe the fantasy that Joe Biden, what a loser, what a dumb person, a stupid crook. And he is a stupid crook. What kind of an idiot is doing a high-level grifting campaign like a mafia thug loser and has a stupid crack addict as his go-between guy for all the clients that he's shaken down at your expense? And then the dummy leaves his laptop in a freaking computer shop. What a bunch of low, mediocre mind losers. But that's the nature of the state. That's what it's all filled with at the top. mediocre minds who couldn't do anything in the real world. They couldn't make a job. They couldn't make an honest living. So they have to come into the state and extract your money with some kind of fantasy called, oh, we have to take care of you. We have to have a regulation. And we're working ourselves to death so much that we don't have the time to understand how every regulation is a crooked lie. It's called rigged-ulations, not regulations. It's rigged. Rigged-ulations. They rig the economy for their friends, and then they convince you, because you're so distracted by keeping up with the crooked economy. You got to pay for this, you got to pay for that, you got to work 5 jobs. Because of their crooked scam, it's a delightful, devilish little system they've got, isn't it? They get you working multiple jobs, they get you stressing, they get you checking out with stupid Netflix programming. They get you so distracted that you can't even tell how all the regulations and laws and new policies and programs are all designed to fleece you and extract your wealth through inflation and taxation and regulation. That's a nice crooked game they've got there, isn't it? But Humpty Dumpty will not be put back together again, because the new media revolution is here, and you and I are a part of it. I'm David Garnosky. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. Back in a moment. David Garnosky here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
This portion of the upcoming amazing broadcast is brought to you by the law firm of Catania & Catania, award-winning personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys, serving Tampa Bay families for over 28 years.
If you want to grow your savings these days, it's good to own gold. Who wants to hold dollars in a savings account earning 0.5%? Instead, check out Monetary Metals, started by my frequent guest, Keith Weiner. They put your gold to work, and you earn 2 to 4% interest, paid out not in dollars, but in more ounces of gold. Plus, there are 0 vault fees. With several active deals open right now, they're taking new clients today. Learn more at interestongold.com/David. That's interestongold.com/David.
Come to the forest. It's a place not so far away where you don't have to mow the lawn or babysit. Ask your parents to take you to where the other you lives. But first, stop by discovertheforest.org, brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Senator Rasan has stood up for our community. He served as the president of the NAACP, fighting for your civil rights, and as a local personal injury attorney enforcing the rights of the injured. He passed Jordan's Law that reformed our child welfare system to save lives. Senator Rasan brought back millions of dollars for mental health resources. And during the pandemic, Senator Rasan pressured the state to hold the company who built the broken unemployment system accountable.
I'm Senator Darrell Rasan, and I'm asking for your vote to continue fighting for you.
Political advertisement paid for and approved by Darrell Rasan for State Senate District 19.
Hello, this is David Garnosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality, grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a 6th-generation beautiful farm in Southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
The following message is brought to you by Moffitt Cancer Center.
Hi, I'm Jan Berry. The leading cancer among women is breast cancer. I am a breast cancer survivor.
Hi, and I'm Richard Gosmartin. The leading cause of cancer among men is prostate cancer. I am a prostate cancer survivor.
I had very little symptoms and was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer.
And I had no symptoms when I was diagnosed with stage 1 prostate cancer.
October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Whatever the month is, I urge you to get tested.
September is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. Trust me, guys, it can save your life. Get tested.
Our marketing partners bring you this vital message as a reminder to get tested. Do it for yourself. Do it for your family.
And your life can depend on it.
Moffitt Cancer Center. Move for what matters. Miles for Moffitt virtual event on October 24th. milesformoffitt.com.
So yesterday was a great day for A Neighbor's Choice. It was a great day for freedom. It was a great day for America. It was a great day for humanity. As you know, A Neighbor's Choice has been at the forefront of giving a voice to those who have been unjustly incarcerated for nonviolent crimes. And yesterday we had the great opportunity of having Alice Marie Johnson on with us, who has become renowned for being a spokesperson for the criminal justice reform efforts undertaken by the Trump administration. Alice Marie Johnson was a grandmother, languishing in prison for year after year after year, for a tangential role involving drug trade. This, despite the fact that Barack Obama admitted in his own biography to doing cocaine, he did nothing. So she didn't do cocaine. But this president, Barack Obama, did cocaine, and he brags about it. He gets a Nobel Prize. He gets the presidency. He gets to sit and find linen. He gets $1 million Netflix deals for China programs. He does all this stuff. And he sits there for 8 freaking years, and he has the power of clemency to let a grandmother go home for something far less than his crooked crap has done. And he does nothing. Thankfully, President Trump did something when Kim Kardashian raised the attention to him, and it changed his mind about the crooked system that we have. And so yesterday was a great day. We had Alice Marie Johnson on, and she was announcing with us live on air as it was happening that President Trump just issued more clemencies, including a person who's been a friend of us and a guest on the program, John Bolin. John Bolin from Central Florida had been serving 4 back-to-back life sentences for a first-time nonviolent drug-related offense. He allowed people to use his boat to move drugs. Meanwhile, all the people that move drugs, they're out scot-free because that's the crooked nature of the system. Doesn't really care about actually stopping the people who are at the top, who know all the cunning techniques for drug trade. They just care about having a scapegoat, making an example, taking people like Clark Griswold and using them as an example to make a intimidation for whatever reason. So John Bolin got clemency from President Trump. Trump has done way more to correct he hasn't done nearly as much as I want, right? Because I have a principle, no victim, no crime, but he has at least done more in that space than any other president in our lifetime. The left talks a big game about being socially just, but they're about to elect a crooked cop who locks up people of color for a living, Kamala Harris, and a crooked banker puppet, Joe Biden, who has bombed everybody he could at the moment's notice that the people tell him at the top to bomb. They say, go after Libya, he does it like a stupid chihuahua. They say, go after Syria, the dumb Joe Biden goes after Syria. They say, go after Yemen, he does it like a stupid idiot. They say, loot Ukraine, he loots Ukraine and the poor people there. This man is a sick little chihuahua for the establishment. 50 years. And I'm not going to let these idiots in the press gaslight the public about the truth of the matter. They are not liberals. They are reactionary Luddites. They don't know what clean energy is. They don't know what an atom is. These people are uneducated, anti-scientific idiots in the Democratic Party. And I'm sick and tired of these people. I'm so tired of these lemmings, these dumb people who want to tell us about clean energy. They don't know the first thing about clean energy. They don't know about nuclear fusion. They don't know how to make it. Low energy nuclear reactions. We have the people on the show, on this program, who know how to do it and are doing. They don't know about what makes the food pyramid so wrong. They're stupid. They just, hey, Big Soy wants money. I got to give him big money. That's all a dumb chihuahua like Joe Biden does. Useless, pathetic fools. And I'm sick and tired of this media propping up these clowns, these zombies of decadence and idiocy. They are slowing our country down. We could have energy too cheap to meter if the idiots of the Democratic Party and the Republican stooge losers got out of the way, got government out of the way. We'd have energy a long time ago. 1989, Stanley Pons, Martin Fleischmann came out with something called cold fusion. Now we call it low temperature nuclear reactions. But you know why you don't have it? Because the stupid losers that like to steal like parasites have gotten into the midst of the situation politically and use government regulations to steer capital, steer interests, and steer regulations in the interests of solar panels and wind farms. You don't need government subsidies for real clean energy like low temperature nuclear reactions. The lying press, which are handmade in chihuahuas for the establishment of war and dark age stupid pseudoscientific garbage, they did everything they could to railroad and attack Martin Fleischmann and Stanley Pons for their discovery of low temperature nuclear energy. Set us back decades, those stupid clowns. And then they have the audacity, NBC and these liars, to lecture us about how we need to save the planet. They are full of it. They are charlatans, my friends. Don't let them take moral high ground. They have no moral high ground. They lecture you about people dying of COVID, and yet they push garbage, pseudoscientific, toxic crap like polyunsaturated fatty acids and high corn syrup and sugar in the food pyramid, which is subsidized big wheat, big sugar, big corn by the federal government. And they have the audacity to lecture us when we know that those foods are the primary indicator for comorbidities like diabetes and heart disease and all the things that have caused the deaths for this new virus. They have been complicit in stupid, anti-scientific retardation of our progress in this society every step of the way. They have no moral high ground, and they don't know the thing about science. All they have to offer is a half a century of war and bank bailouts from Joe Biden. That's all they got. They have nothing to offer us for the future. They don't know what education is. They don't understand how a market works. They don't understand how innovation works. They don't understand how medicine works. They don't understand how clean energy works. They know nothing. But your solution isn't just to go back the stupid used car salesmen that run the Republican hacks and conservative Inc. The solution is to think for yourself. The solution is to take care of your life and stop depending on politicians to save you. They can't save anything. They can't even save their crack addict sons, Hunter Biden, and their disgusting ring of corruption, exploiting poor people and exploiting your money and making you work two jobs just to pay for all the parasitical corruption and extraction of our wealth through taxation and government intervention. No one talks like this in the mainstream media because they are lemmings sold out for war and banker bailouts. We'll be back in just a moment, live on A Neighbor's Choice. Sir Owen's next.
Ronald Reagan would turn over in his grave if he saw what's going on today.
Crazy things are happening.
You cannot be afraid. You've got to stand up for what you believe is right.
But one thing is for sure.
You can't trust anybody.
For talk, news, and information, you can count on us.
Enough is enough. I mean, I almost blew a gasket.
Good for the country.
I know what I'm talking about. A lot of wackos out there.
Your connection to talk about it. The all-new News Talk 1040 WHP.
12 days from Election Day, tonight's the final head-to-head debate between President Trump and Democratic nominee Joe Biden. They're in Nashville, and both campaigns say the candidates have tested negative for COVID-19. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie spent time in the hospital with the coronavirus after he helped prepare the president for the first debate. Today, he says he let his guard down only briefly and found his life in danger.
I'd gone from feeling fine and doing my work on a Friday afternoon to by Saturday at 1 o'clock, being admitted to the hospital and taken immediately to the intensive care unit.
He appeared during Ohio Governor Mike DeWine's daily coronavirus briefing as that state announced more than 2,400 new cases today. Right now, there are at least 7 large wildfires burning in Colorado. The largest is northwest of Denver, and it grew by over 100,000 acres in a day. And the Senate Judiciary Committee advanced Judge Amy Coney Barrett's Supreme Court nomination to the full Senate, which will likely vote on it Monday. Brian Clark, ABC News.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. We're live across the airwaves on FM and AM and our podcast and live stream online. You know our website, aneighborschoice.com. You can go there for all of our content. If you miss our live radio work, you can always find it archived on aneighborschoice.com. And now we're joined by a favorite of the Tampa Bay area. He is a geopolitical analyst. Sir Owen joins us back. How you doing?
David, it's such a pleasure to be with you, and I just always love hearing your voice here on the radio, and you do such a good job. There's so much content in your programs. I mean, we're really privileged to have you doing your story here on the internet and on the airwaves.
Well, I'm glad to have you back, and you are someone who understands and studies the avarice of the state. You study how it works, and of course, the big story that's happening in the news cycle, you can't find it much on Twitter and other establishment news sources. They've been doing everything they can to kind of cover for it, but it's the story of Hunter Biden's laptop, where they have found all kinds of email exchanges and texts in which Hunter Biden apparently was the bag man for Vice President Joe Biden, so that he could kick back some pieces of the grift to his daddy from China or Ukraine or all these different countries. Where everywhere he goes, Joe Biden does a policy, and Hunter Biden apparently was working a deal to get a little bit of that policy's effect kicked back to the family. What do you make of this?
Well, I just think it's typical. I mean, everything in Washington, they all have cutouts where they can enrich themselves on the public largesse. There's absolutely nothing new about it. I mean, Washington is a cesspool. We've turned inside of a parkway it's the royal palace, and the reality that we live with out here in the hinterlands means nothing to them. They're in for 4 years, they're elected or whatever, and they've got to steal as quickly as they can during those 4 years, because they're not absolutely certain they're going to have the next 4 years. So that's normally the case. And, I mean, you see it. I mean, it is, I think Americans just ignore this reality, but the reality is these people are employed as employees of the state in government in Washington, D.C. They're on a very short tenure, so it's snatch and grab.
Right.
And every family, whether the president or the senators or the congressmen, perhaps, I don't know, one of the reasons that Trump was, I think, elected was because people sort of perceived that he was wealthy enough that he could not be bought cheaply, and that he perhaps would be able to act on his own instincts and an agenda. But those whatever you think of his instincts and agenda. But all of these other people are just puppets. I mean, Obama comes from what? A street organizer making $20,000 or $30,000 to a senator making $120,000, and leaves the presidency a multimillionaire. I mean, it happens time and time again. The same thing with the Clintons before him. The same, I mean, the principle is the same: snatch and grab, and you have your cutouts who go in and put the strong arm and the whisper in the ear of those people who are listening. And that's just the fact of life in Washington, D.C. And perhaps it is the fact of life in all governments, unfortunately.
Yeah, so they say here's a May 20, 2017 text exchange obtained by Fox News. Tony Bobulinski is warned by business partner James Gilliar, quote, "Don't mention Joe being involved. It's only when you are face to face. I know you know that, but they are paranoid, which is apparently a reference to Joe Biden. And Hunter Biden also said, make sure we give, 10% cut to the big guy. And Hunter Biden's ex-business partner said that was in a reference to Joe Biden. So this is what this guy does. He's a mediocre mind, but he knows how to, Joe Biden knows how to, be a guy who can use our tax dollars to enrich his family. Mediocre mind, but cunning at the end of the day, apparently.
Well, unfortunately, David, this is exactly the kind of guy that the deep state loves, because they know how venal and how easy to compromise he is. And so you say, well, they would never support a guy that's, crooked. That's exactly the kind of guy that you support, because you can always, disavow yourself from him. If they say he's one of your guys, we wouldn't hire someone like that. I mean, someone who steals and does all this stuff. I mean, the agency would never do this. Well, he's exactly the kind of guy. You always want someone who is compromisable. And at the end of the day, everyone is compromisable. You, I, everyone. But those people in Washington who have their trigger fingers on the money trigger up there, you really want a compromisable guy. Does that make sense? I mean, I know that probably there are people out there listening who say, well, that's just very cynical. But I assure you, folks, it's the truth.
Yeah, that's what you want. And I think it's also interesting that this hard drive of this laptop, which apparently many different people have, probably many outside of the United States, has all these photos with Rudy Giuliani, who had one of the hard drives. He turned it over to the police. He says there's underage children in violent or basically illegal situations with Hunter Biden on this laptop. And that's what Rudy Giuliani said right before he turned it over to the police. Who knows what's going to come of it when the Attorney General of Delaware, I guess, are here as a big friend of Joe Biden. It's always a crooked system every step of the way. But it reminds me of something you used to say in your university lectures when I'd see them, is that it's all about compromise. So if all these different countries have this hard drive, perhaps, and it has all these photos of Hunter Biden with children, apparently, according to Rudy Giuliani, that's an easy compromise to get Joe Biden to do whatever they want, isn't it?
Well, actually, let me turn it around a bit. Actually, right now is if you have a festering sore, you want to prick it, to bleed it right now. Perhaps releasing all of this nonsense right now with all the crazies who no, I don't mean crazies, that's a bad choice of term, but the people who are fanatically devoted to Biden, it doesn't matter to them what he did. It doesn't matter to them who he did it to or when he did it. All that matters is they just hate Donald Trump, and that's the truth. There is no rationality in it. So right now is probably, if you think of Monica Lewinsky, there was an interesting story in Washington about Monica and Bill Clinton, and the story was that Israel was about to compromise the United States, Bill Clinton, very much by going in and turning their dossier on him and Monica over to them, and that one of our agencies leaked the thing before it got there so that the president could not be compromised by this foreign country. But it was going to be embarrassing to him. Of course, he didn't agree. This was all outside. There was no consultation with him on this, but it was all released to lance that wound before a foreign power, i.e. Israel, could really exploit it in secret with him.
Wow. Yeah,
that's just a story now. Yeah. Don't be putting me up on the wall, but that is a story that I think had some legs, because where I heard it was a good place.
Right. Well, that's why we go to you, because you've been involved in geopolitical. So I look at this story breaking from Graham Allen. He says, Donald Trump, front row guest to the debates tonight, is the former Hunter Biden business partner turned whistleblower that implicates Joe Biden. So it'll be interesting to see if that pans out to be the case. That reminds me of the stunt that President Trump pulled with Hillary Clinton when they came out with the Access Hollywood tapes about Trump, saying the comment about women. and then he came back and had all the people who had accused Bill Clinton of sexual assault in the audience that night. It sounds like he's going to do another something like that perhaps in tonight's debate. So that'll be interesting to see. Hey, even if you're not interested in government, it is entertaining. You got to admit that, right?
Well, I mean, let's face it, the whole thing has become theater because really we're only out in the audience watching this. In truth, we have absolutely no input to it. No input at all. I mean, the voting, all this stuff, well, it's interesting, but no input. And again, going back to what I said originally, the people who are so devoted to, that Trump has, for whatever reason, so annoyed that, I mean, it happened on day one when he was elected. It's continued for 4 years. And right now, their emotions are just so coiled that they don't really care what Biden does. I don't think there's anything you could say that Biden did that would dissuade one of these people who are the real Trump haters, that just, for whatever reason, have this terrible feeling. I don't understand it really, but apparently it makes sense to them.
Well, at the end of the day, it's a lot more interesting to be obsessed about personalities than to actually work out the facts and actually understand the situation. I had a guess.
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right. And what is interesting to me is I have, some very, I would say, erudite, very, very intellectual, very people that I have known for years that are very stable people, stable personalities that I've always thought I would go to them for advice. Frankly, they're not rational on this subject anymore. Right. They're just not rational. It's just something that is, I don't know. It's very visceral with them, and I wish I could share it, or at least or understand it. I don't understand it, and it's a visceral kind of hatred of Trump, and I think they would vote for, for Lenin, for God's sakes, if he were running.
Right.
If he were running against Trump, and I say that seriously.
Well, speaking of Lenin, I know that you were a big, we had the big interview this week with Prince Ermias Selassie. Selassie.
By the way, congratulations on that. Prince Ermias Haile Selassie, the president of the Crown Council, that has gone, was it viral or viral? It's gone viral.
Yeah.
I guess they're the same thing, viral, viral, both strong and active. But it's active on the internet, and you did that. That's amazing. I've heard we had over 1 million or a couple of million people looking at it.
Yeah, it's all over the place. It's in several publications all over the world, actually. And Newsmax has got it at the top. WorldNet Daily, townhall.com, Libertarian Institute. Several others will be coming on, stream.org, various other outlets. And it's a hot story because, of course, it illustrates what happens when fanaticism takes hold of a country, when people get caught up in blind hate, as we've been kind of talking about today. And that doesn't mean any team is the best or any party is the best, but when you get caught up in blind hate, it makes you do stupid things. And that's exactly what happened to Emperor Haile Selassie when the revolutionaries overthrew him, right?
Well, you're absolutely right. And the thing is, when you go back to the founders of our nation, they understood about the passions of the mass. They hated democracy.
Right.
That's why we have a republic. We have a representative democracy, you can say, but really we're represented by representatives in Washington who finally vote on these issues, so that the mob can't go running up there and it's mob rule, and you have 51% destroy the 49%, that sort of thing.
Right, and
that's theory.
Yeah,
that was the theory. So, it's gone south. I mean, our founders were not a fan of democracy. They'd seen the French Revolution.
Who was it that said that democracy is 2 wolves and a lamb fighting over what's for dinner, deciding what's dinner, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Or what is it? I forget it right now, but something about the shepherd trying to convince the lamb that he has his best interest at heart.
Right. Well, that's one of the things that you hear that and you see that, and yet here was this great liberator. He was an anti-colonialist, Emperor Haile Selassie. You know more about his story than I do, but it's a shame how you don't get a fair story about him. It's hard to find good coverage of the true history of that story. So many folks in the corporate press seem to be very, very sensitive to defending the actions of their buddies, their radicals that they like to use, you know?
Yep. Well, I mean, that's the deal. I mean, the American, we're the major sponsor of revolution. When I say we, the United States of America is the major sponsor of these little surreptitious revolutions, the color revolutions, they're calling them now, all over the country. And it's been going on my entire life. I watched it in Central America, down in South America when I was spending time there. I watched, all around the world, you see these I call them phony, because you can always find 20% of the people or 10% who are so upset about a situation they'll get out in the streets and throw Molotov cocktails. You can always, in any country.
Right.
I don't care what it is. And in America, you think about it. If you got 30% of Americans, what's that now? 300 and some odd million. So say 90 million Americans out in the street throwing shoes or rocks or whatever. You could make a real good story that the people don't like the country, but that's not true.
Right.
Because the majority do like the country, and the country is. But you can make a good story out of that fervor in the streets that is so easy to whip up. So easy to whip up. I've seen it all through Central South America, and then some of the Caribbean, Haiti, down in Dominican Republic. It's very interesting.
Yeah, we don't fully understand how human beings are, and especially those who seem to be at the top of politics, or at least that's how it seems, because humans are, in a group, prone to blind hatred. And as Prince Haile Selassie said in my interview with him, which you can find on aneighborschoice.com, you'll see that he says this Marxist revolutionary spirit, where you're toppling statues and trying to erase history, it leads to blind hatred. It leads to blind murder. It's sacrificial to its core.
It does. And there is a bloodlust in human beings. Having been in the military and having seen this firsthand myself, there are the people in the height of excitation will do terrible things. And maybe the next moment they're sorry about it, but at that moment there is a bloodlust, and it is intrinsic in humans, and they know, and the people in power in Washington know how to trigger it.
And I want to move to something in modern Ethiopia that we touched on in our interview with Prince Haile Selassie. There was the story that he mentioned about America getting involved with their internal situation over there and kind of backing the Egyptian side of the dispute. Could you shed a little bit of background on that?
Well, I think what you're talking about, David, the Ethiopians have, what most people in the world don't know, is that the Blue Nile begins in a thing called Lake Tana in the middle of Ethiopia. And 85% of the waters of the Nile come from Lake Tana. And what the Ethiopians have done, and very rightly so, reasonably, they have decided to dam up their lake and to regulate the water. But the reason for their damming the lake is so that they can generate hydroelectric power for the electrification of vast areas of Ethiopia that still are very feudal and very tribal and have not had the opportunities to develop. So they have dammed up Lake Tana, and now the people downstream, which is Sudan and then Egypt eventually, are becoming concerned. But I never thought there was an issue, because what the damming of the Nile will do is regulate the flow of the water. And if you know anything about the Nile cycle, there is flooding during various parts of the year, and then there is drought during various parts of the year on the Amazon. This will make the flow regular and dependable, and you won't have the boom bust sort of situation downstream. But the Egyptians are which, by the way, is a military. They are absolutely. They overthrew what I guess Sisi was it, and they have been. They are absolutely tyrants. And then in Sudan is wanting to work with Ethiopia, but the Americans have gotten in the middle of what business America has anywhere in negotiating a treaty between Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia is a mystery to me. And it's even worse than that because the Ethiopians were a surrogate fighting force against the Somalis after the Black Hawk Down incident, and have provided men, machinery, and blood to the United States government to go into Somalia to fight with the rebels there. And basically, it is. You wonder what American politicians are thinking of involving themselves in this issue. Well, dam is. Yeah, excuse me.
Yeah, there's a lot of history with them backing Egypt, so they're just being loyal to their client. But if President Trump wants to live up to his America First approach, he should look at that. He should stay out of Ethiopia's affairs, as all countries he should stay out of. And perhaps maybe that state, Minnesota, that he wants to win, where he lost by 40,000 votes last time. I know there's a large Ethiopian population there. Maybe they'd take a little bit of a notice if President Trump.
They have taken umbrage. You're right, David. They are very. The Ethiopian Americans are probably one of the most advanced African groups in America. Doctors, lawyers, professionals. They keep to themselves. They're very quiet and they're very successful, bright people. And they are watching very closely this. And in Minnesota, you know, I bet you could not find one Ethiopian that is happy. And this is a swing state for him with his in the election, by the way. I don't think you can find one Ethiopian that is happy with the Americans taking the side of the Egyptians on this. What I call it's a straw man argument. It makes no sense at all.
Well, Sir Owen, it's a pleasure having you on as always. I want people to subscribe to your email newsletter, Hot Politics. Where can they subscribe to it? Can you give the email address?
Tamarind at hotpolitics.com. Tamarind, TAMARIND at hotpolitics.com.
Well, thanks again for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
David, thank you. You're doing a great job.
We'll be back in just a second on A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gronowski. You can email us hello@aneighborschoice.com. We'll be back. Don't go anywhere. David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa.
Not attorney spokeswoman.
Hello, this is David Gronowski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a 6th-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. If you want to grow your savings these days, it's good to own gold. Who wants to hold dollars in a savings account earning 0.5%? Instead, check out Monetary Metals, started by my frequent guest, Keith Weiner. They put your gold to work, and you earn 2 to 4% interest, paid out not in dollars, but in more ounces of gold. Plus, there are 0 vault fees. With several active deals open right now, they're taking new clients today. Learn more at interestongold.com/David. That's interestongold.com/David. Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, David Gronowski. Glad to have you with us as we have conversations nobody else does in this country, in a media environment that is rife with corruption. I saw Brett Weinstein, who is a biologist and a person who is firmly on the left, a Democrat. He was, famous for being chased off campus with violent mobs after him at Evergreen College. He has since become kind of a professor in exile about biology and the need to stop being so into cancel culture. And apparently, he just posted an hour ago that he's been evicted from Facebook. He says, I have been evicted from Facebook. No explanation, no appeal. I have downloaded my information and see nothing that explains it. We are governed now in private by entities that make their own rules and are answerable to no process. Disaster is inevitable. We are living it. So his account has been disabled. So if you're a leftist, but you don't go with the extreme, radical, vicious, hateful cancel culture stuff, they'll just terrorize you. They cannot stand any diversity of thought. That's how fragile their ideology is. It is so paper thin. They have to employ total gaslighting to keep it maintained. President Trump can get all kinds of negative stories, and some of them are real and legit, and he's still there. But I mean, it's like these guys are so fragile. They get one tiny little story and they can't handle it. Their whole little house of cards falls apart. They're losing. They're not progressive. They're reactionaries. And they're losing. They're losing grip on power. They're losing their institutions. But you have to do what you have to do to make sure they don't have more power in the future. Get your kids out of their government schools. Stop talking about your culture going to hell, and yet you won't want to get your kids out of government schools. Total joke. You're being owned by the progressive fakes whenever you send your kids to be indoctrinated for year after year after year. Just get your kids out of that school. Get your kids out of the food pyramid. Get your family out of the food pyramid. Learn the truth about health and nutrition. Those are 2 things you can do in your own life, your education and your food, that are simple, right under your nose for you to do. And stop listening to the 60 Minutes. All they do is shill for wars and banksters and crooks. So that's what it's all about, folks. You got to think for yourself. It's not about politicians saving you. It's about you taking back your life and being a part of this new media conversation. I'm David Gronowski. Godspeed. Road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER. From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gronowski. So glad to be with you again for our second hour of today's broadcast, where we're coming to you across FM and AM and worldwide online on our podcast and video streams. Always remember our website, aneighborschoice.com, is your go-to place for all of our content. We're a program that's different. We don't just tackle politics. Everybody does that and media. We do that, but we do it a little differently. We challenge politics itself. We challenge the need to stick to politics to find answers. We believe that you can find answers closer to home if you have the courage to think for yourself and not rely on the sacred cows of dogma to do your thinking for you. But we also get into culture. We get into science. We get into energy, technology, nutrition, medicine. And we look for things that are right under our noses that are true about the universe, true about the human body, in a way that can surprise us, delight us, and inspire us to do great things in our time on this earth. And so joining me now for our Science in You segment that we do every Thursday is our Chief Science Advisor for A Neighbor's Choice, physicist Dr. Yu. How you doing?
Thank you, David, for having me on. I'm doing great as usual.
Well, very good. Now, I hear there's some exciting stories going on, so I wanted to get into some of the news in the science world. There's a story published in the New York Times. NASA touched an asteroid. How much will it bring home? When NASA's OSIRIS-REx spacecraft touched the surface of an asteroid Tuesday to gather a sample of rocks and dirt, the operation proceeded smoothly to the glee of the mission's operators 200 million miles away on Earth. But the biggest question remained unanswered. How much of the asteroid did OSIRIS-REx pick up? Did it manage to gather any samples at all? On Wednesday, the mission managers released a video of the sampling mechanism hitting the surface of the asteroid within 3 feet or so of where the spacecraft has been aimed. What's your take on this story?
Wow, this is historical. The first time, the man-made spacecraft landing on an asteroid. Of course, we have a previous, Japanese, spacecraft, many years ago, landing on an asteroid. But now it take a sample and we're bringing home. So that's historic. And so this event, if you think about it from the history of space flight, from the first time, that's the greatest one. That's the landing human on the moon. That's considered, for me, the greatest one. The second one is have a rover on Mars, because that's a different planet, right? One is on Moon. Moon is a satellite, and then we have a rovers, many man-made rovers rolling around Mars. That's a planet, but now we have a man-made spacecraft that's called the OSIRIS-REx, landing on asteroids. And not only landing on them, they collect samples and we're taking home. So that's historic.
What do you expect to be in that rubble when they bring it home?
Oh, okay. I listened to the expert talking about what they landed, what they find. The terrain or is different than what we expect. Original expect is a much smoother surface and much harder, rock, solid harder. But this time we landed on, we found so many small, rocks, small pebbles, and even that, so many things. So that's some kind of surprise. And however, it made the collection samples much easier. Originally, try to collect samples. This is because of the mass of Osiris, the asteroid, Bennu, is so small. It's only like a 500-meter diameter. It's 0.3 diameter size. It's very small, just like a Empire State Empire building size. Mm-hmm. So gravity is very small. So you cannot land it on them and then grab something, right? So you only touching something and try to use air that blow everything on the surface, blow those rocks, those dirt, and blow them, and hopefully, they can blow them up, and those then then collect enough and on the container. So, and this time is better than expected. So we were on schedule. This one, the whole thing launched in 2016. So that's more than 4 years ago. But it arrived, in December 2018. So they arrived, and then the orbiting of this asteroid is on the Empire building site, orbited for a year, for more than a year, and it did a lot of survey before finalize the site to collect samples. And we also have a margin, say what happens if the first time doesn't work, second time, and the third time. And what happens, fortunately, the day before yesterday, that's October 20th. So I watched real time the broadcast. Of course, no picture. Picture will be delayed like 18 minutes delayed. But so we watched it real time. And the first time try, it worked. That's amazing.
Wow, that's very interesting. Of course, another big story that people are excited about in science is that NASA is going to announce new science results about the moon. An exciting new discovery about the moon will be made by NASA from the Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy at a media teleconference at noon Eastern Time on Monday, this coming Monday. So that'll be exciting to see what that is.
Oh, so it's not happened yet. So next Monday, coming Monday. Okay.
Yeah, next Monday, there's a new announcement about science results about the moon. It's going to have Astrophysics Division Director Paul Hertz and Chief Exploration Scientist, all these different individuals on the press release. So it'll be interesting to see. Maybe they found a base on there, huh?
Moon 18.
Yeah. A little colony. That'd be exciting. But anyways, it's always interesting to see what comes out of these different events because we got to look to the stars. Pretty soon, humanity may be having different homes outside of Earth, huh?
Hopefully, maybe not in my lifetime, but hopefully the science explosion, technology explosion, maybe exponentially grows in that form. So maybe in my lifetime, so we can see, at least we can see human landing on the Mars. I have no doubt completely. So whether we can colonize them and it becomes, routine traveling site. So that may take longer. So,
what makes the difference from the physics standpoint of an asteroid and a comet?
That's a great question. From the number one, if this asteroid, so this is a bad news asteroid, or just an asteroid, right? If they are orbiting, right now they're orbiting the sun, however, in relatively circular orbit, just like Earth, okay, little bit elliptical, but almost a circle. However, the comets orbiting the sun in elliptical orbits. What that means, when they approach the sun, they are cut very, very closer to the sun's plasma field atoms, sun's magnetic field. It's much closer, and also traveling at a much faster velocity. What that means, when you have a fast traveling object near a plasma field, so you will generate oscillation, magnetic field, you will generate light. So in this case, so normally asteroid, the shape is more like a rounded shape, but comet is less than round shape. Is totally like what is in this case like a duck, a toy duck. You can put in the bathtub, the toy duck, the shape. So it's an irregular shape. That's one thing. Another thing is, so the surface is much rougher on the comet, and compare with the surface of the asteroid. But the key thing is the orbit is different. So when you orbit far away from the solar plasma field, you do not see light because the magnetic field is so weak. However, if you have a fast object passing through closer to the solar sun plasma field, you will generate oscillation field, so you will generate light. Just like a space shuttle, just like any asteroid hit on Earth. Earth has a thick atmosphere. So whenever you have an object go through the atmosphere, thick atmosphere, you create frictions. Frictions create oscillation of magnetic field because they will ionize the atmosphere. So that's why you create the light. So the size also is different. So in this case, Bennu is only say 0.3 miles diameter. But for the asteroid, for this one, what is for the Rosetta mission, that asteroid is about 4 times 5 kilometers, 4 times 5 kilometers, basically 2.5 miles across. So it's bigger, and the orbit is more elliptical, so it will go through sun much closer, and also its size bigger, and the orbit close to the sun, to sun's magnetic field closer, and also the surface is rougher and then non-irregular. What that means? That means it's a highly magnetic charged object.
Wow. Let's hold that thought. We're listening to Science and You, our science segment that we do each Thursday on A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gronowski here with Dr. Yu, our physicist friend, and we'll be back in just a moment with a new headline that says light sails will unlock interstellar travel. This one is the most promising yet, according to Yahoo. We'll be back in just a moment to unpack this. David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa.
Not attorney spokeswoman.
If you want to grow your savings these days, it's good to own gold. Who wants to hold dollars in a savings account earning 0.5%? Instead, check out Monetary Metals, started by my frequent guest, Keith Weiner. They put your gold to work, and you earn 2 to 4% interest, paid out not in dollars, but in more ounces of gold. Plus, there are 0 vault fees. With several active deals open right now, they're taking new clients today. Learn more at interestongold.com/David. That's interestongold.com/David. Hello, this is David Gronowski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a 6th-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pastures beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. A Neighbor's Choice returns. I'm David Gronowski. We're doing our Science and You segment that we learn about science and innovation and things that are happening right under our noses as people work to make our world better. And they don't always get the media coverage, but that's okay. We're providing it, and we have a growing community that follows this. But first, I want to tell you about our friends at Oakley Transport. Oakley Transport has got great opportunities for drivers who are highly qualified CDLA licensed drivers ready to take the road in service of their neighbor to keep America fed. OakleyTransport.com is their website, and it's exciting because you can really have a lot of breakthroughs when you hit the road in service of keeping America fed, making sure the store shelves stay stocked. We saw what happened with the political lockdown situation, which really disrupted food supplies and caused stores to go empty some of the shelves for some time. We don't want to see that happen again. And if you are ready to have a rewarding career that encourages you to drive safely and provide food for everyone around the country, you want to go to oakleytransport.com and sign up. Let them know that David sent you. And we're always glad to hear about the great drivers there at Oakley Transport. And we're joined now by Dr. Yu, our physicist friend, who is unlocking the news in the world of science today. So let's look at this story here, Dr. Yu, from Popular Mechanics. A tiny mock-up of a graphene light cell has performed well in microgravity experiments. Light cell concepts date back hundreds of years with advocates like Carl Sagan and Bill Nye. The light part is photons, but the lighter in mass these cells are, the better they work. A new light cell concept for spaceflight has passed a microgravity test with flying colors. This is the latest in a growing pile of promising research, including the endorsement of pop culture science dad Bill Nye. What is this light cell? What is this, and what do you make of it?
So this is whenever we involving space traveling, we try to find the propulsion system. What to propel, the spacecraft forward, and without consuming too much, resource, right? And so normally we use a chemical, propulsion, but that can only go so far because of chemical propulsion is burned out very fast, very non-efficient. And another way we use nuclear fuel, which can power lots of things. Say include the tiny, the Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. So that's almost one of them is already reach to the boundary of solar system. So that's use a nuclear fuel. But this is what we're talking about. Use something not just a solar fuel. So the so-called light cell is also called a solar cell. Basically, try to use solar light as a power, propel the craft, moving. So that's called use light cell. But it hardly had any successful demonstration because the reason is because the solar wind or the solar light oscillation or something basically is not enough to push a heavier object in the direction that we wanted to push. So that's why. So they try to make this light cell use solar wind, solar light pushing and lighter object. So this happens to use the same material we're talking about so many times, called graphene. Because graphene just one layer carbon atom formed this kind of mesh, right? Just one layer, so it's very, very light. However, it's a highly strong bond between carbon atoms. So that's how that's how diamond formed. Diamond formed by carbon atom. Use carbon bond. That's very hard, strong bond, and also because one layer is light, and also superconductive. So what that means, it is super light and conductive, very easily to interact with the solar light. Solar light is oscillation, right? The vibration during light is an electromagnetic wave. So that's why it's easier to interact with the solar wind. And then we find out only from 3 by 3 centimeters size of the very small size of the graphene laboratory tested. Oh, it works. Interact with solar light. So this has a potential if we can scale up, and it can traveling in solar system anywhere without additional fuel.
What about what is it about graphene that makes it so special? We keep talking about it. It keeps popping up in all these different areas of energy innovation.
Yes, graphene somehow is just like a new gold in science. You see, we're talking about the graphene, superconductive. So we are studying materials, use graphene to try to create a superconducting materials. And also we try to use graphene. I believe last week we were talking about graphene can build a generator. Basically, if we initiate it by use a small battery, create an initial spark and make a graphene made a graphene circuit. So it can continuously generate electricity and without ever need more energy input. So that means, so graphene, that one. And also we use graphene, we have so many, and also when we're talking about graphene has a special magnetic field, so can make a circuit, can make some kind of wonderful materials to improve, even build computer chips. So now the question is, why graphene is so special? The one reason is the binding between between carbon atom. The binding force is very strong. Is a magnetic binding force very strong, and and also the carbon atom is highly magnetic charged. So that means, and especially you just make it a one layer. So that means one layer. That means a very lateral resistance. So whenever they vibrating, that's how they generate electricity. So whenever the graphene sheet is vibrating, then generates electricity. But since it's only one layer without the resistance between other layers, it does not generate heat. And that's so efficient.
Wow, I really think graphene needs to be further researched because it seems to have a lot of ideal properties for really maximizing energy efficiency in very novel ways. So as always, thank you for joining us, Dr. Yu, and we'll see you next week. Folks, and when we continue, we'll hear from the president of the Mises Institute, the top free market research group. Jeff Deist will join us to talk about what's going to happen in the debates tonight. Back in just a moment.
There is all kinds of lunacy going on. Yeah. The madness of 2020.
No.
Weekdays 11 to 2.
I'm just so fed up with these Democrats. It's unbelievable.
Get it straight from Chris Plant.
They're so hypocritical. It makes me sick.
It's the Chris Plant Show.
This has just got me going on.
And the left is waging war against the police in the United States.
Telling it like it is.
You should be thanked profusely for getting to the point. You're a voice of reason in the sea of idiots.
The Chris Plant Show. Weekdays 11 to 2. News Talk 1040 WHBO.
Remdesivir is no longer a therapeutic for COVID-19. It is now the first and only approved treatment in the U.S. The FDA signed off on the drug for use on hospitalized patients. The U.S. is averaging nearly 60,000 new cases a day. Rural areas are being hit very hard. Utah Governor Gary Herbert says hospitals in his state are running out of ICU beds.
It should cause us all concern with our ICU units being occupied by COVID-19 patients, and that has the potential to push out others who need it.
North Dakota reporting a record day of new infections. In Kansas, the positivity rate has topped 20%. That's one of the highest in the nation. President Trump and former Vice President Biden will face off tonight in their final debate before the November election. At least 47 million early votes have been cast so far. Two government officials tell ABC News that Russia and Iran both successfully have penetrated local election systems containing voter registration data. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
Hello, David Gronowski here. Welcome to A Neighbor's Choice. We are live across FM and AM on our affiliate stations and also on our website, aneighborschoice.com, our podcast platforms, and video live stream. And we're joined now by the president of the Ludwig von Mises Institute in Auburn, Alabama, which is the country's best free market research advocacy group and understanding of pricing and how markets work. We have Jeff Dice with us. How you doing, Jeff?
Hey, David. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. And of course, the big topic everybody's excited about right now, people who are news junkies, is what's going on. We're going to have a debate tonight, huh? President Trump and Joe Biden going at it.
Well, you mentioned markets and pricing. And the question is politics part of that? Is politics part of the marketplace? That there's a whole school of thought called public choice that says we ought to view political actors like Trump and Biden the same way we view economic actors like a private company, in the sense that they're not always rational, they're self-interested, they're not just purely motivated by the good of society or whatever. So look. I don't know if you saw any of the aborted Leslie Stahl 60 Minutes interview with Trump, but the whole thing now is pretty useless. I think I like the idea of direct media where somebody wants to run for office, they can just talk to us. We don't need these sort of staged pageants where some dopey network trots out George Stephanopoulos or Wolf Blitzer or Mike Wallace's kid. Chris Wallace, I guess, and then we don't need the sham intermediary of CNN or any of these people. That to me is what the digital age is all about, for good or bad. Sometimes not having a middleman is bad because, people who really don't deserve a platform nonetheless get one by pandering to the lowest common denominator. But nonetheless, this is where we are. And, I don't put any stock in these debates. They've really just become exercises in not hurting yourself. It's all about what you don't say or do. And I probably haven't watched one in at least 10 years because to me, they're just almost unbearable. And, we've got all of our millions of people on social media to fill us in the next morning if anything actually happens.
Right. Well, what do you, I think that the debate moderators and the 60-minute journalists and so forth, they are the equivalent of the referee in a pro wrestling match, aren't they? A lot of people who even believe that wrestling is fake, probably if you asked them, they'd say, yeah, I guess there's a referee that's like doing rules. And it's like, no, that's the actor too. He's there to sell you on the legitimacy of the game, of this performance, right?
Right. And, the thing is but they're not just actors. They are overwhelmingly on the side of Biden.
Right.
And if you ask journalists, honestly, 80-90% of them voted for Hillary Clinton against Trump, and will vote for Joe Biden against Trump. That's just a fact. That whatever, they can have whatever politics they want, and they can have whatever profession they want. That's fine. But there's a difference between opinion and reporting. There's a difference between editorializing and journalism, and that's fine. I want to be clear here. if the overwhelming bulk of journalists are against Trump, that is absolutely fine. What's not fine is the pretense of objectivity. They hate this guy. They want him out. They will do almost anything to help that happen in terms of downplaying bad Biden stories and amplifying bad Trump stories. We've seen it time and time again. And it's just, I don't know about you, David, but it's just got me worn out.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted by it. I find the whole process way too much. These campaigns are too long. And honestly, what I really resent is the idea that if you don't vote for our guy, there'll be trouble. You know, that it's a form of demoralization where they say, look, we got the American public so beat up with COVID and job losses and racial strife and all this, you know, this acrimony and animosity surrounding Trump. It's almost like they want you to cry uncle and say, okay, let's have Biden. Anything to give us 6 months of normalcy or whatever it takes. And that is not in keeping with the, you know, democracy these guys are endlessly claiming to view as somehow sacred. So they're not really Democrats, small d. What they are is people who want to use democracy, mass democracy, at the ballot booth when it works, when it, you know, forwards their purposes. When it doesn't, when Trump wins, then they start to change the rules.
Yeah, Jam Online says, much love for Jeff. Brand Without Claws says, Trump is just as bad, but I'm going to vote for him. And I think a lot of people are just, Americans don't like being pushed around and told you have to do something. Now, some of them do, obviously, where they put their mask on while they hike in a deserted forest. But there's a large portion of Americans that don't like being told by like 90% of people, you do what we tell you, or we're going to smack you. We're going to make you feel bad. We're going to push you in the corner. We're going to dox you if you do anything. People don't like that. Americans like underdogs, and the media's strong arm tactics to try to get you on their character that they want to be the hero. It's going to backfire if they hadn't done that, I think.
Yeah, it's true. And there's a reason why voting is anonymous, or at least ostensibly anonymous. We hope it's anonymous. It's anonymous because you're supposed to be able to vote for whom you want to, without having to worry about your neighbor's prying eyes. But you know, as far as the underdog goes, it's a little strange because in many ways Trump, his personality is anything but. You know, he's not Michael Dukakis, he's not Jimmy Carter. But the problem with this scenario, and I certainly took, you know, more of an interest in Trump versus Hillary Clinton than Trump versus Biden, because I just thought that was a more interesting sociological phenomenon because of the inevitability of Hillary. The progressive arc was that, of course, we're going to have Hillary Clinton. We just had our first black president. Now we're going to have our first female president, and so on and so forth. And so when Trump came along, that was an earthquake. Whereas here, I hate to say it, but he doesn't really deserve re-election in the sense that he didn't in any significant way get us out of the Middle East, and he didn't in any significant way drain the swamp. He stayed too susceptible to flattery, and that's why there were people around him like John Bolton. That's why there were people around him still like Fauci. You know, so I hesitate to become emotionally invested in this at all, and I would suggest the same for your listeners, because there's not all that much he can do in office, which we've seen over the last 4 years, and as bad as Biden is, and I think he's a lot worse than advertised. I think he's far more left-wing in his heart of hearts, and also I think he's far more corrupt than the sort of down the center, long-serving senator, you know, image he projects. But, you know, they're going to put the pedal to the metal whether Trump wins or loses. In other words, they don't just go away. So I'm more into figuring out how we can live together through some form of succession or federalism or subsidiarity than I am in figuring out how to just barely beat back the leftist tide every 4 years.
Sir online says, I think the case can be made that Trump is providing the foundation on which future radical decentralization can be made. And I think if there's a battle between globalism and nationalism, I guess nationalism is closer to home than globalism, isn't it? Right?
Well, certainly. And look, if Trump manages to win, the first time you could call it a fluke, you could say Hillary Clinton was asleep, assuming she would win easily, didn't go into Wisconsin and some of the swing states as heavily as she should have. People were more upset about the economy than pollsters understood, that sort of thing. But if he wins again, then if he wins a second time, it's no fluke. And then I think you're going to have a very real scenario where states like California are simply saying, we are not going to follow the edicts of the federal government. We are simply going to ignore, immigration edicts, or we're going to have our own minimum wage, or we're going to have our own gun laws, that sort of thing. So I really view that as the most positive scenario that could come out of this. Not that we're going to have the kind of federal government I would like us to have, which is not much, but rather we could see the animosity and what in the left's eyes, the illegitimacy of Trump turn into something that's actually helpful for us, which is to break up and go our separate ways.
Yeah. So when you see that kind of animosity, do you think that the media would be as losing their minds about Trump if he did everything he's done in office, but he didn't do any of the gruff stuff, the mean stuff, the calling them out directly, mocking them, making fun of them? If he had done absolutely zero of that, no braggadocio, he does all the same policies, but none of the politically incorrect stuff. What do you think? Do you think they'd hate him as much as they do?
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I don't think he would have won because that was his whole charm, right? That he was something totally different. And that's what a country that was fed up wanted. But, let's say he had won. I think the answer is no. I don't think there's a ton of actual enacted policy differences between what Donald Trump has done and what Hillary Clinton would have done. And I'm not talking about tone, substance, style, rhetoric. I'm talking about actually enacted policies, given the realities of a divided House and Senate, et cetera. So I don't think, she would have done all that much different in the Middle East. I don't think she would have done all that much different with respect to taxes or anything else. I mean, maybe a little bit. So this is all about a sort of a personal, visceral hatred of Donald Trump. And I think if Hillary Clinton were president right now, the entire story about COVID, with the exact same facts, the same data, the same number of deaths, the same origins, the same talk about vaccines and distancing and masks and all that, I think the story as reported would be remarkably different, because I think the media would be working 24/7 to portray Hillary Clinton as the brave leader who was, commanding the federal government to keep us safe from this virus. If she had done exactly what Donald Trump has done with respect to international flights and if you can remember way back, everyone was talking about ventilators. Yeah. And so I think that there's no question about that she would have been treated differently.
Yeah, what I don't understand about the media is maybe you can enlighten me. What are they actually saying that Trump didn't do enough? Like, I don't get it. I guess he didn't. He spent all this money. He was doing the commandeering of the economy, was moving ventilators this way and military boats and all this stuff. I mean, as far as statist intervention goes, what did he do what did he not do enough of? I don't understand it. I don't get their criticism.
Well, and that's just it. These are the same critics who were calling him an authoritarian fascist. And if he had shut down international flights into the United States, you'd think they would lose their minds. But instead, they're saying he didn't do enough, or he didn't do soon enough, or he didn't send enough money, or he did. I love the fact that he never attempted nor suggested federal mandates, whether that's masks, distancing, school shutdowns, business shutdowns. He, from the get-go, never tried to use his bully pulpit as president to boss around the governors. So he deserves a lot of credit for that. And as a result, we got to see a little bit of an experiment right here at home between the 50 states. And we're still watching that unroll. And I'm thankful for that. So this, the media is just full of it. They, no matter what this guy did, they were going to absolutely savage him. And that's a big reason why nobody wants to listen to them when it comes to this election.
Now, I want to go back to something you said earlier, that you think we need to move, of course, in a decentralized direction and looking closer to home for political solutions and situations to occur. You were talking about we need to start getting along not under the same roof, right? If you have a best friend, but if you have to live into the same house and have the same thermostat, that best friend might not like you very much after all, right? And that's kind of the idea you're saying. We need to kind of go closer to home and stop having everything decided by a centralized government, right?
Well, if you look at countries that are, at least before COVID, relatively happy and relatively high functioning, they tend to be small. 330 million people forced to live under one central federal government, and really oftentimes under just the whims of 4 or 5 Supreme Court justices who are effectively making laws. I mean, let's be honest. It's a recipe for disaster. And if you look at big countries like China and India, which are even larger than the United States but have one central government, they tend to have a lot of turmoil. States that are prosperous and happy tend to look more like Sweden and Liechtenstein and Switzerland. So there's a reason for that. And part of the reason, there's a lot of factors. We can't be simpletons. But a lot of that is just size. And so the idea that we can somehow muster up, let's say, 75 million, votes for our guy or gal every 4 years. It's just silly. So I think the writing's on the wall. Some of these political differences are far more cultural than they are policy. And we ought to just recognize them and say we don't need one size fits all. And that doesn't mean we have to break up and have outright secession and new governments form. But it does mean we have to, I think, try a much stronger degree of federalism.
So what would you say to folks that say, well, wouldn't China love that? Wouldn't China love to see a couple states break apart? Wouldn't that be making us weak? And then China or somebody would come in and try to reap the chaos or something?
Well, is China trying to reap the chaos in Switzerland or Sweden? I'm not sure. I mean, look, China has its own problems. I mean, what matters is how wealthy you are per capita, not how wealthy you are just in terms of gross GDP, which is pretty much a meaningless number anyway. So that's what this is all about. It's all about quality of life and prosperity and peace. And what we're doing right now is creating the conditions for a civil war. And so there's nothing worse, nothing more important to avoid than an outright hot civil war. So if breaking up sounds radical to you, or if it sounds like something that the Chinese would be secretly thrilled by because they would become relatively that much more powerful on the world stage or something like that, I mean, those are secondary questions. We have a cancer, and we have to deal with that first.
We're speaking with Jeff Deist, president of Mises.org. Their website's Mises.org, and we'll continue in just a moment. And coming up, I'm going to get Jeff Deist read on this story about Chris Pratt, the actor from the Avengers. He got a virtual mob after him. He didn't even say anything. It was just some stupid meme goes around, and the mean girls on the left come out like they always do. And Jeff Deist has a new story out on Mises.org called The Privilege of Politics, where he gets into this. We're going to find out what his thoughts are on this Chris Pratt mobbing in just a second. David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
Hello, this is David Gronowski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a 6th-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. If you want to grow your savings these days, it's good to own gold. Who wants to hold dollars in a savings account earning 0.5%? Instead, check out Monetary Metals, started by my frequent guest, Keith Weiner. They put your gold to work, and you earn 2 to 4% interest, paid out not in dollars, but in more ounces of gold. Plus, there are 0 vault fees. With several active deals open right now, they're taking new clients today. Learn more at interestongold.com/David. That's interestongold.com/David. A Neighbor's Choice returns. We're live across FM and AM. I'm your host, David Gronowski. You can email me hello@aneighborschoice.com or visit our website at neighborschoice.com, where we have all kinds of exclusive interviews, including each week we have my guest that we have on now, Jeff Deist, president of Mises.org. He joins us now to reflect on the culture, politics, and economics from his perspective, rooted as it is in Austrian school economics. It's something you might want to Google if you're not familiar with. It's kind of important to know about economics and how they work in this wild time. But Jeff, I want to go to something closer to culture. Actor Chris Pratt, he found himself the target of the Mean Girls. You know, you ever seen that movie Mean Girls, Jeff, where they're always talking crap about people? That's all they ever do.
Well, they certainly have found their place on social media, haven't they?
Yeah. Well, that's like the heart and soul of the modern neo-lib left, is they just mob people, and the guy didn't even say anything. And you wrote an article about it called The Privilege of Politics. Maybe can you expand a little bit the story?
Well, there's some what I know about Chris Pratt is basically through my son, because I got a 15-year-old who's into I guess it's the Avengers. I hope I'm not wrong about that. The Avengers series he's in. But so, I've seen him in some movies taking my son. And so basically, some of his fellow actors who are very left, pro-Biden, somehow it was brought up to their attention, A, that Chris Pratt has not said anything about Biden and that he may be a secret Trump supporter, and B, that he attends some sort of Christian church, which according to the social media enforcers is not sufficiently up to snuff with respect to their view on LGBT. And so one of his fellow actors, a guy named Mark Ruffalo, who is, I believe, quite a left-wing person, came to his defense and said, no, I know Chris. I've worked with him. He's a great guy. He's a kind, loving person and not at all political. So this was what really triggered people, because all of a sudden the mob came out and said, well, this is a privilege. He's a rich white guy, and his church is anti-LGBT, and it's easy for him to sit back and watch Trump get reelected. But the rest of us, this is life or death, because Trump is a Nazi fascist, and he's going to kill LGBT, this sort of thing. Would be, just an absolute farce of an outrage mob. So it turns out, I did a little digging, and it turns out, of course, that his church is not some radical right-wing fundamentalist church. It's a pretty mainline, Bible church, and they assiduously deny any anti-LGBT sentiment. They're just like, look, we welcome anyone in our church. And, it's just struck me that, first of all, think of the privilege. The real privilege is not Chris Pratt minding his own business and being a good guy and going to the church of his choice. Okay, that's not privilege. He's not harming anyone. The privilege is insisting there's some affirmative duty on the behalf of Chris Pratt or us, David Gornosky and Jeff, to sort of go out there and not only accept these people's politics, which is, Biden, you have to vote Biden because Trump is an existential threat. And really we need Bernie, but, we'll have to settle for Biden. And then number two, it's not, you can't sit by silently, and your church better conform to the latest, and I would say ever-changing requirements of the LGBT orthodoxy on, let's say, the issue of transgenderism. Well, churches are allowed to have doctrine, and churches view all kinds of things as sins. They might view adultery and smoking cigarettes or watching porn or whatever as a sin. But the people who engage in those things and who are deemed sinners are still allowed to come on Sundays, and everyone's friendly. So this, I think, was just anti-Christian bias coming through. But more importantly, the idea that you have to view life through a purely political lens like these crazy leftists do. And if you don't, it's because you're privileged, you're white or you're rich, and you're going to be A-okay if Trump wins, but the marginalized people are going to be, put in concentration camps or something. I mean, that is privilege, to boss people around and say, not only do you have to agree with my politics and accept my politics, but you have an affirmative duty to go out there and pursue them just as actively as I do. You can't just have a quiet life where you don't view everything through a political lens. And that really galls me. I think that's wrong, and I think it's un-American.
Well, Jeff, just to illustrate the lie of their whole argument that they stand for victims, yesterday on this program, we got to break the news with Alice Marie Johnson, the woman who was pardoned by President Trump. She was put in prison for laws by the Biden, and Biden put that crime bill on the books for nonviolent crimes. Trump pardoned her, and we got to break the news with her on my show yesterday that a guy who's called into the show for from prison to plead for clemency, John Bolin, he had a first-time nonviolent drug offense. He had 4 back-to-back life sentences, Jeff. Meanwhile, people who are violent, they get off scot-free. But he was serving 4 back-to-back life sentences for a nonviolent crime. He got clemency from President Trump. So the reality is, Jeff, is that Trump and whatever we want to say, they're actually doing more to undo the criminal justice, mass incarceration that the left has been the architects of. So I really appreciate you coming on, Jeff, and it's always a pleasure to hear from you.
All right. Thanks, David.
And make sure you check out Mises.org. That's Mises, M-I-S-E-S.org. I'm David Gornosky. Godspeed.